Hello, good evening, everybody. Welcome back to our Tuesday, our Tech Tuesday. And we've been covering that rather nasty subject of depression. And I chose it because it seems like it's becoming a lot more common these days. And sadly, I work in the medical field, for those of you who don't know, but I get to see this on a very regular basis, whether it's attempted suicides, whether it's just people suffering from depression, whether it's patients who are in hospital, who have had major surgeries. A lot of them are suffering from depression. And quite honestly, I think I would too, because if I was chained into a bed, couldn't move around very much, in a room where there's not much stimulation because there's not a lot of windows in a lot of places, not really access to fresh air or to sunlight, and you're in pain most of the time, it's depressing. And we covered last week a few other reasons behind depression and pretty much the definition of it, what it is. It's not just that feeling of down and feeling sad. It is a recognized medical condition. So depression is a real thing. And everybody responds differently and they handle it in different ways. So I'm going to share my screen over here. And I can do this. There we go. So we're talking about the lowdown about feeling down. Now, what are some of the risk factors as far as depression is concerned? Is depression catching, like a cold or flu or a virus? No, it's not. But there are some risk factors that some people are more at risk of getting depression or suffering from depression. And these risk factors include things like experiencing certain life events, such as bereavement, work issues. You've been retrenched, you've been fired, you've been demoted, that sort of thing. Changes in relationships. There's been a divorce, there's been a separation. Again, bereavement comes into that one as well. Financial problems. Suddenly you've become bankrupt. Today you've got the big house and the nice income, and tomorrow your company car gets repossessed, your job is over, and you've still got a ton of bills to pay and absolutely no income. People get depressed. And medical concerns. You've been diagnosed with a long-term illness or chronic illness. You've suddenly been told, look, you've got cancer. You've been told that you've had this accident and now you're a paraplegic, or you're going to be needing surgeries every month for the next 6 months. It's stressful. It leads to depression. You can be experiencing acute stress. Again, this bereavement. Sadly, there was an issue along our coast this afternoon. Family on holiday, went swimming, unfortunately, where they weren't supposed to be. And there's a bereavement in that family, unfortunately. So it's acute stress. They were happy and on holiday, and now suddenly there's a problem. We got to plan a funeral. Having a lack of successful coping strategies. You are on your own in a strange area. Think about you've flown overseas and now suddenly there's a problem, your flights have been cancelled, you were mugged, whatever, and there's absolutely no family or friends or anybody around you. Trying to cope with all of these things on your own is extremely stressful and can lead to depression. Having a close relative with depression. We all know that if you associate with negative people, you will be negative. If you associate with depressed people, you will be depressed. Hello, can you hear me?
Hello.
All right,
Yes,
sorry.
you're back again.
Yes, Sean, I
I'm
can hear
back.
you.
I think you were frozen.
Yeah, no, the connection dropped. So let me get back to where I was. Apologies for that one. Okay. Okay, so as I was saying, if you have a close relative with depression, it comes down to that association. You associate with positive people, you become positive. You associate with negative people, you become negative. You associate with depressed people, you have a risk of developing depression. Using some prescription drugs such as corticosteroids, certain beta blockers, and interferon. Interferon is something that they generally prescribe for things like breast cancer, amongst other things. There are other reasons for these. I'm not that clued up on drugs, but there are people who are on chronic steroids. Beta blockers are there for cardiac conditions. Using recreational drugs such as alcohol, and yes, alcohol is a drug, or amphetamines. And there's a whole mess of other so-called recreational drugs, which become a major, major problem. Having sustained a head injury, and I'm not talking about you stood up under a cupboard door and whacked the back of your head. I'm talking about you were involved in a nasty accident and you obtained a head injury. Not just bleeding, no, not just a cut in the scalp and there's a lot of blood, but you fell off your motorbike, for instance, and you developed a concussion, or there was bleeding on the brain. We're talking major head injury. Having a neurodegenerative disease such as Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, these are medically incurable. And there's basically, once you've been diagnosed with it, there's only one way, and that's down. And knowing this can be extremely depressing, but there's ways to cope with it and to work around it. Having had a previous episode of major depression, we're not talking a bereavement and sad for a few days. We're talking major depression for weeks, possibly even years. Having a chronic condition such as diabetes or chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or COPD as it's otherwise known, or a cardiovascular disease. These are things where they're risky. You don't know, you know you've been diagnosed with this disease and you know it could be fatal, but you don't know how long you are going to live with it before you no longer live with it. And living with chronic pain. And sadly, I get to see this fairly regularly as well. People with rheumatoid arthritis, people with cancer, people with spinal injuries. They literally live on painkillers. They have painkillers. We're not talking Panado, we're talking heavy duty painkillers, 2, 3, 4 times a day. Sometimes they have a permanent morphine pump attached to them, where just like a diabetic, it's exposing them to painkiller or the painkiller action on a chronic basis, so all the time. We're talking 24/7, not, oh, I've got a headache for an hour or two, chronic pain. And this is exhausting. And when you don't sleep, your pain becomes worse. When your pain becomes worse, you don't sleep. It's a vicious cycle. And you know that when you wake up, you're going to be in pain. When you're going to sleep, you're going to be in pain. Just the thought of that is depressing for me. Lacking social support. And again, think of somebody who is maybe aged. They lost their entire family through whatever reason, or their family's been involved in a massive car accident and they're the sole survivor. Yeah, we're talking disaster. And you don't have family to turn to. You don't have friends to turn to. You're living on your own. And you know that you're getting older, sicker, and that you're not really coping on your own. That can lead to depression. Mood affectors. This is where I come up again. Insufficient sleep and the debt of sleep, which accumulates as a result, has profound effects upon both behavior and mood. Dr. Jim McAfee has got a fascinating talk, and it's titled Vitamin S, and the S stands for sleep. It's that important. And one of these days I might try and transcribe this, because I haven't found it in an actual article, but I do have the talk, and I might try and transcribe it at some stage and do a presentation on the importance of sleep and how it affects when we have enough, and more importantly, when we don't have enough. Sleep deprivation studies have shown that lack of sleep increases bodily complaints such as headache, stomach ache, sore joints, and muscles. Even more profound than the effects of lack of sleep on the body are the impact of sleep debt on the mind and mood. And this is quite common. Now, this might be a little bit scary information for you, but this is quite common in people who work shifts. And I know the staff at my local hospital, they work 3 months on night duty. Now, this is 7 nights on, 7 nights off. But sometimes some of the departments say, or like the sessionals, they can work a day duty, and then not tomorrow night, well, they can work a day duty today, and tomorrow night they go on night duty for 2 days. And then they come off night duty and they go on to day duty for 3 days. And then they've got 1 day off and they go back on night duty for maybe a week. That messes up your sleep cycle classically. And as a result, it affects the mind and the mood. And you think about some of these emergency workers who can go for 24 hours without sleep in a major emergency. Think of a very busy casualty unit, and the doctor on call is seeing 100 patients. He doesn't have chance to sleep. He doesn't have that luxury. It becomes a problem. And in fact, one of the torture systems that they do for prisoners of war, I don't know if they still do it, but I know it used to be a strong case, was they would keep people awake for more than 48 hours. They were not allowed to nod off or sleep at all. It affects the mind in more ways than you realize. Patients with irritable bowel syndrome and food allergy have significantly higher levels of depression and anxiety compared to non-healthy controls or healthy controls. Researchers suggested that the symptoms were related to excessive immune activity in the gut in both instances. And the gut has been referred to as the second brain, because if you've ever had an upset tummy, you know if your tummy ain't happy, you generally ain't happy. Depressed patients have a preferential craving for simple carbohydrates, such as table sugar. You're tired, you're exhausted. What do you feel like? A chocolate bar? Think of the amount of sugar in that. Or what do? They grab a soda drink loaded with sugar. And if they can't find a soda drink loaded with sugar, what are they going to go for? An energy drink, which is loaded with sugar and all sorts of other fun stuff that is really not good for them because they're looking for that boost. It's the simple carbohydrate. Simple carbohydrates are those things that can be absorbed and utilized instantly by the body. Complex carbohydrates still have to get broken down. And this could be related to the serotonin production, but more likely is due to the ability of sugar to activate the opiate receptors in the brain. Just like taking an opiate drug, sugar has the same effect. The question arises as to whether the craving for sugar among those who are depressed is a cause of depression or a consequence as a damaged person attempts to cope with the depression. Remember, in nature, the body will always try and heal itself and protect itself. This could be another way. Larry Christensen, who's a doctorate, observed in his research that eliminating sugar and caffeine from the diet was often highly beneficial for depressed individuals. A simple thing like that. Just get rid of the sugar and the caffeine. I say it's simple. It's not easy to do. If you drink a lot of coffee and suddenly you quit, I think you probably know what I'm talking about. Christensen developed the Christensen Dietary Distress Inventory as a means of evaluation of the dietary effectiveness of eliminating sugar and caffeine pardon me, from the diet for treatment of depression. 10 years of research suggested that the dietary change had to be in effect for at least 2 weeks to determine if it would be beneficial. Almost like cold turkey. A study of 300 cases of hypoglycemia, meaning low, found that 60% of those with the condition were depressed and 50% were suffering with anxiety. So think about it. You've had no sugar, your sugar levels are extremely low. Are you a happy, smiling, joyful individual? Or are you irritable and stressed and just not a happy camper? Fatigue and exhaustion characterized 67% of those with low blood sugar. And I've experienced this with one of our products that is designed to lower blood sugar, specifically in diabetics. When it first came out, I thought I'd test drive it. I'm not diabetic, and I generally don't have a lot of sugar. I don't have a very sweet tooth anymore. I used to, but I don't anymore. Yeah, the odd bit of chocolate here and there is good, but I don't do that on a daily basis. Well, when I first started taking these tablets, I noticed that I suddenly became extremely tired and lacked energy. And that told me that these products worked extremely effectively because it took my normal sugar levels and dropped it to a lower level, which was not fun. The result? I don't use them anymore. Now, food, mood, and supplements. How does this interact? How does it affect? Let me check what my time is. Omega-3 fatty acids are highly concentrated in brain and nerve tissue and are obtained only from the diet after birth. Before birth, they are obtained from mom, and hopefully mom is having sufficient omega-3. Much evidence suggests that deficiency can lead to improper brain functioning. Diets rich in fish oil protect against depression and hostility. And I remember somebody mentioning in a talk that a test was done on a group of taxi drivers. I think it was up in Johannesburg. And they put them on omega-3s. And their road rage decreased very dramatically in a very short space of time. So if you know somebody who has a lot of road rage, maybe you need to tap on their window and offer them some omega-3. Countries with a high intake of fish have a lower prevalence of depression. The connection is further supported by blood measurements of fatty acids and by supplement studies which show that higher levels of omega-3 fats are associated with decreased risk of depression and hostility. Total levels of fish oils was also found to predict levels of a metabolite of dopamine. And dopamine is your calmative mood enhancer, basically. And it's what helps to de-stress and calm people and to lower that depression. Dopamine is a feel-good hormone associated with reward and pleasure. So if you're doing something that you enjoy, this is good fun, you have a boost of dopamine. And sort of like adrenaline, if you're like me and like jumping off bridges with strings attached, or going horse riding, or going ziplining, all those sort of things, it's an adrenaline rush. Even going for a run, it's an adrenaline rush. And when your adrenaline rises, your dopamine levels also rise and you feel good. It's fun. Now life is fun again. Cholesterol lowering medications also lower levels of essential fatty acids, including the quality of oils found in fish. So that's the bad news about the cholesterol lowering meds. And this may be one of the reasons why cholesterol lowering meds are associated with an increased risk of suicide, murder, and hostility. So think about it. Somebody gets diagnosed with high cholesterol, they get put, and sadly, some of the doctors at a certain age say, statistically speaking, your risk of developing a cholesterol issue is quite high from this age. Here, have some cholesterol lowering meds. And the next thing you know, that quiet, friendly neighbor has turned into a mass murderer of his family. Why? Well, the good news is his cholesterol levels are a bit lower. The bad news is, oh, yeah. So I'm not saying that will happen, but that risk is there, and the research is there to show it as well. Supplementation with omega-3 fatty acids has been shown to be of more benefit than placebo in unipolar, bipolar, and childhood forms of depression. Exercise should be an adjunct to any therapy for depression. If you go out and do some exercise, you generally feel good. Sometimes at the time you wonder why you're doing it. And we're talking about this on Saturday after our run, and pretty much everybody will agree that midway through the run, especially like on Saturday when it was very hot, we're starting to question our sanity as to why are we doing this? When we finish, we know why we do it. And I tell people that my run on a Saturday is my antidepressant. It's my de-stress. Because what is it doing? It's raising my adrenaline. It's raising my dopamine. Both aerobic and non-aerobic exercise seem to produce benefits. So aerobic is running, swimming, walking fast. Non-aerobic is lifting weights, resistance exercises, that kind of thing. There are a number of theories as to why exercise is so beneficial for depressed individuals. And one of these is the stimulation of natural opiate receptors responsible for the runner's high. So if you ever wondered why people go out and run the Comrades Marathon, they're just trying to get high legally. Exercise also lowers levels of stress hormones in the body. Exercise improves the tissue response to insulin and reduces the risk of developing diabetes. So there's another reason. The Comrades runners, they're trying to get high, but they're also trying to reduce their risk of diabetes. Unfortunately, they do increase their risk of other problems, but hey, you win some, you lose some. Recent studies on both animals and humans have shown that probiotic supplementation can reduce symptoms of depression and anxiety. Inflammation of the gut can trigger these symptoms. Again, Your gut is your second brain. Overgrowth of harmful bacteria in the gut can trigger inflammation. And this overgrowth can be triggered by diets high in fat and sugar. Can you see how all of this revolves around together? It's all in the mind, but it's also in the gut. And according to recent studies, cognitive decline and disorders classed as dementias are affecting increasing numbers of people around the world. The word dementia actually means deprived of mind. It's a general term that covers progressive memory loss, thinking difficulties, changes in personality, and dwindling ability to perform everyday activities, like simply brushing your teeth or combing your hair. It is a multifaceted condition that not only affects the individuals who have it in a financial and emotional sense, but their families or caregivers as well. Think of that person who you've loved all your life and you're watching them simply fade away. They've always been active, they've always been on the go, and now they just sit. They've got absolutely no will to live. And the most common type of dementia is Alzheimer's, otherwise known as Oldtimers. Most attempts to develop drugs to treat Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia have not been successful. There is an increasing awareness that treating dementias at a late stage is futile and intervention should start early in life. As usual, prevention is a whole lot less painful than cure. It seems that the type of microbes found in the lining of the digestive tract can influence our brain in different ways. In relation to how our gut may affect our mood, one example of this action is the gut bacteria's ability to make serotonin, our happiness neurotransmitter. And recent research has associated the presence of certain bacteria with a more positive mood. And as we know, what we eat certainly has the capability to influence the composition of the gut microbiota. If you balance your life, you'll balance your brain. Challenge your brain and learn new things every day to promote mental activity. Now, most of us on this call do this because we know that we need to look for something positive daily. If you're not there yet, challenge yourself. Fill your week with social interactions and fun. Be involved in the community. And that could simply mean going for a walk along the beachfront and saying hi. Go for a walk in the shops and say, hi, how are you? Social activities that involve both mental activity and physical activity, such as dancing and team sports, for example, provide even greater benefit for brain health and reducing the risk of dementia. Exercise at a level that is suitable for you and do something that you enjoy. If you don't enjoy going to the gym or you don't enjoy doing something like parkrun, don't go and do it. It won't be good. Make sure you always have enough high quality sleep. 3 hours sitting in front of the TV isn't going to do it. And this is known to be very important to the recovery processes of the brain. High quality sleep also helps with regulating your emotions and emotional memory. Manage your stress levels. Negative stress can really impact the brain, causing neurons to die off ahead of their time. And stress is one of those things that does not only impact your brain, but can impact you on a deeper emotional level. Recent science confirms that there is a very strong link between midlife heart health and the later risk of developing dementia. Keep your blood sugar in balance. Glucose is vital to support the brain's ability to carry out its many demanding tasks, such as transmitting electrical nerve impulses and making neurotransmitters. A lack of a steady glucose supply affects all cognitive processes and in particular, memory. In fact, it is known that when glucose is not able to be used effectively, there can be accelerated cognitive decline. There are many similarities with the problems of glucose metabolism in the brain and in the body. In fact, Alzheimer's is often referred to as diabetes type 3. Make sure you get enough healthy fats to help build and support the working brain. Get enough quality protein and amino acids. Keep topped up on nutrients which support energy metabolism. B group vitamins are known to play key roles in energy metabolism, and this helps power the working brain, which has such high demands, and protect your body and mind with powerful phytonutrients. Numerous recent scientific publications have implicated polyphenols such as anthocyanins, flavonoids, and curcumoids as being great for the brain. That is the end of that. So some very simple, basic things that can be done. Doesn't require drugs, doesn't require admission to hospital. Just some very basic lifestyle changes. I'm going to stop recording.